Welcome to the Catalyst of Change Women Leaders in Science seminar series. Today, we will be hearing from a very distinguished leader in science and innovation, Dr. Ismahane Elouafi, FAO Chief Scientist. Following Dr. Elouafi's conference, she will have a conversation with Andrea, co-leader of the CGIAR Digitation Innovation Initiative and senior leader of the Monitoring and Evaluation Unit. There is interpretation available in Spanish, French, and Hindi. To access interpretation, you choose the language of your preference by clicking the translation button at the base of your Zoom screen. On the screen, you will see the QR code that will give you access to Slido for submitting questions and comments to be addressed by the speaker at the end of her presentation. We invite you to follow us in LinkedIn, YouTube, and social media using the hashtag Women in Science for the Catalyst of Change, Women Leaders in Science seminar series. Now, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Brian Govards, Director General of CIMMYT, to officially open the event and welcome our distinguished speaker. Dr. Govards, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Isabel, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending from where you are logging into this 6th webinar, Catalyst of Change, Women Leaders in Science series. At CIMMYT, we are hosting this TED Talk meets fireside chat style series on women leaders because we believe you can't be what you can see. And we want more women leaders in our science institutions. We want more leaders like the one that you will hear from today and our own CIMMYT women leader that will interview our today presenter. To achieve this goal of broader representation and gender balance, of diversity, we have not only changed our logo to represent the different colors people can have in their essence, but also we want to listen to journeys. We want to learn, we want to lead by example, we want to learn by doing. In this series, therefore, we are highlighting women who are leaders in all sorts of capacities, fields, and disciplines, because we believe that leadership styles can be very different, and looking at those different styles will help to forge our own leadership style within our own realm of action. When almost a year ago now, we started planning for this seminar series, I knew we needed a few women for sure that could be interviewed on this series. And I will confess, Ismahane was from the beginning one of them. We were very lucky that she almost immediately accepted, and even today, her schedule got more busy than ever. Dr. Ismahane is currently the first ever, I believe, Chief Scientist of the Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, of the United Nations, and I have the honor of being exactly here in their headquarters transmitting for this series. Currently, Ismahane has created within the FAO a core leadership to lead the FAO's science and innovation agenda and to ensure that the organization applies modern science and technology and adopts innovation approaches throughout all projects, programs, and management. Prior to that, Ismahane was Director General of the International Center for Bio-Saline Agriculture based in the United Arab Emirates and one of our co-collaborators in the CRP wheat, for example. She has held senior scientific and leadership positions, including senior advisor to the Assistant Deputy Minister of Agriculture at Agri-Food Canada, and also a national manager of Canada's Plant Research section. She was also a director of the Research Management and Partnerships Division at the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Some may not know that as a scientist, she actually worked in ICARDA, GIRCAS, and in our own CIMMYT. But mostly, Ismahane is a strong advocate for diversifying into neglected and underutilized crops and for rethinking the food system as a whole. She was an early advocate for resilience and inclusion from a human perspective and a biological perspective. And she's internationally known for her work on promoting the use of non-fresh water in agriculture and the empowerment of women in science. Her contributions and policies have been recognized worldwide with a number of prestigious awards and accolades, including the National Reward Medal from His Majesty the King Mohammed IV of Morocco in 2014, and the Excellence in Science Award from the Global Thinkers Forum that same year. It is our honor to listen to nobody less than Ismahane. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Bram, and really a pleasure to be in the series of Catalysts for Change. As you said, Bram, we had this discussion for me to join you and a little bit share with the people my own journey as a woman scientist and then a woman science manager. And it's really a pleasure to be back at CIMMYT. I always say I started with CIMMYT. Actually, I started with ICARDA and CIMMYT as I did my PhD with both organization. And a year in my PhD, I became a pre-doctoral fellow with CIMMYT based at ICARDA. So it was really, it's nice to be back and to be able to speak Spanish as well. So ojalá hablamos español hoy también. So we will mix both languages. So basically, Bram, I didn't prepare anything because I wanted really that my speech and my narrative comes out very natural. And when I look back in my journey, the things really that comes across to me as a person, if I get out of myself, is that in the grand scheme of things, curiosity made me make many things. So my curiosity to find out something or to understand something better made me take some turns in my life. The other point that I would bring up is persistence. So I don't get discouraged easily, definitely not by prejudices or by somebody saying that I am weak or I can't do it. So these two points, the curiosity and the persistence, have really walked the path with me in the last 25 years of my career. So I am Ismahane Elouafi. Right now, I'm the chief scientist of FAO, and proudly so. I'm the first chief scientist of FAO because FAO for the longest time did not really maybe put a person to lead the science because it's a technical agency that builds everything on science, technology, and innovation. But the new DG, Dr. Shu Dong-yu, when he took office 4 years ago, he insisted to have a chief scientist because he's a geneticist himself and he wanted to really give more spotlight to science in everything FAO does. If you ask me, who am I would tell you first, I'm a mother of two lovely kids. I'm Moroccan and Canadian by choice. So I'm born in Morocco and very proudly Moroccan, and that's where my roots are. And I immigrated to Canada, which add me another layer of I would say of wealth and richness. I am a geneticist and I'm really a big fan of genetics. I believe that genetics as a discipline is a discipline that will help us do everything better. And maybe my other point will be I'm an Arab Muslim person. So my culture as an Arab person, my religion as a Muslim woman defines me very, very strongly. So I was born and raised in Morocco. I I had a lot of curiosity in sciences in general. In Morocco, we start with mathematics, then we do physics, then we do chemistry, and biology is the last one. So it's this is the way the curriculum is. So when I started mathematics, I was very, very curious about it. Mathematics we started very early, like 8 or 9 years old. So when I start mathematics, I loved the numbers. I had a really very strong memory. I was able really to understand algebra and and geometry and others. I was very, very good. I went through national competition, first provincial competition, and then national competition in mathematics. When I started physics, I was like, wow, this is even better. I could apply the mathematics in the physics world. And then when I started chemistry, I got like really curious about it. Like, this is really important. Things interact between them and can give you something else. But really, the aha moment for me was biology. And within biology, it was genetics. So understanding the cells and understanding how the cells work and getting in it everything else from the chemistry to the physics to was really very important. So when I came across genetics, and that was in my high school years, I really got got really very much curious about knowing more about it, understanding what's defined the heterosis, what's defined that the 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 product of a fecundation is different. So it was really very important. And I did that during my years in the military school, where I was pursuing a career for being a firefighter. No, sorry, not a fighter, a pilot fighter in the military. And there was a program in Morocco to have for the first time women as pilot fighters in the aviation military stream. And we were 7 girls that were going through the program, through the different training. And unfortunately, in that particular year, there was an incident that made the aviation change their mind and pull off the program. And when it happened when I was just finishing my bachelor degree, my high school, which is baccalauréat en français. In French, we call it baccalauréat. And then, because they changed the program at the last minute, they asked us, we were the 7 girls, they said, do you want to continue and work with us in aviation, whereby you became an engineer? You could be a radar engineer, you could become mechanical engineer or an electric engineer or all the engineering around aviation, or you could leave. And me and 2 of my friends, we were so disappointed that the program was canceled that we left. And when we left, most of the schools in Morocco, the high schools, or let's say the specialized school, like medicine is a school, architecture is a school, agriculture is a school, and so on. Dentistry, it's another one. So all of these, journalism is a school as well. So the schools are specialized university that takes a definite number. So everybody is allowed to go to university, and the university is for free, by the way, in Morocco. But the schools do normally exams to pick the number they want, be it 100 or 200 or whatever it is. What happens, the cancellation of the program was a bit late. So when we find out, most of the schools that we would have liked to go to were already closed, be it the architect, the journalism, the medicine, and so on. So the only one that was still open was agriculture. So the 3 of us, the 3 girlfriends, we ended up in agriculture. And I have to say, at the beginning, it was for us a different sphere. We were in a military school where we had a military program whereby we studied about 12 hours a day. Maybe I'm exaggerating, maybe 10 hours a day. We do exercise for another 3 hours a day. So it was a very heavy program on both exercising and studying. So when we went to the university, which was a free flow, we had the best time ever the first year, whereby we didn't do much. But then as I went through agriculture, I really, again, reminded me of my interest in biology and genetics. And that's what made me really do a master degree on plant breeding. So I wanted to really to understand better the genetics, and I wanted to really to do breeding of different species. And while I was doing my master degree, my professor had a collaboration with Dr. Miludi Nasheed, the Durham breeder in ICAR, CIMMET program. And that's how I got to know about the CGIAR. That was my first really time to get to know the CGIAR system. I did a course in ICARDA on molecular biology, and that really gave me a bit of more interest on what's next. In general, for more all my career, I always wanted to do more. So I wasn't from the school whereby after my bachelor degree I work, or after my master degree I work. I was raised by my dad and mom, who really always put so much emphasis on having good grades and on studying, on being more curious, on learning more, on sharing knowledge. So my dad is a director of a primary school, and before becoming a director of the school, he was a teacher himself for primary school. So for him, as I was growing up and moving from school to school, it was very important to see me succeeding, but also to see me wanting to do more. So he really instilled in me and in all my sisters love of science, love of knowledge, I would say more than science. It's love of knowledge and wanting to know more and sharing what we know. So our dinners and lunches were very much around what did you learn, what's new, what was surprising in your philosophy classes, or what was surprising in your science classes, and what have you. And I have to say, I have six sisters. They're all professionals, and they are all really very good experts in their own field, from electric engineering to insurance to TV programs and what have you, depends where they went. So in my family, it was a very happy family, very jumpy, where we are all girls and we are all equals. So I didn't have the issue of a male and a female. So the discrimination between a boy and a girl was not part of my upbringing. We were very much a woman house with my dad, and we were brought up as we are equals. So later on, maybe about when I was 19, I remember I spent a summer vacation with a friend, and she was the only girl with two boys. And I remember in the morning we were going to the beach. The mom let ask us to do things, but not the boys. And I was only 18, and I was like a guest in the house of somebody else. But then I stand up. I said, no, no. If they don't do the sandwiches with us, I'm not doing anything. Or they don't eat the sandwich. Only us that prepare the sandwich. So my exposure to discrimination or to favoritism for a boy did not happen within my upbringing. It happened later on. So as I did my master degree and I came to know about Summit Icarda, I had the fellowship in Belgium. I discovered Europe in that 6 months in Belgium. I got an offer to do a PhD with Liège University with a fellowship. But at the same time, I got also an offer to do my PhD with Dr. Miloudi Nasheed in CIMIT Icarda Donum program, with a program with Australia. And 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 at that time, I remember very well, I was in Belgium, I had both offers, and I started doing the plus and minus, thinking what's better. And what took me to picking up the fellowship with Icarda CIMIT was definitely the international flavor. I knew that by going to Belgium, I'm gonna do my studies and maybe be within the Belgium system or go back to Morocco. By picking up a program that is funded by Australia, where the research is done in Syria and in Mexico with these two international centers, it's opening up the door for me for international department. And it was a wonderful PhD. It was a PhD that took me from lab to lab, from my university in Cordoba, laboratories, where we had very good laboratories, to the ICARDA laboratories, to the CIMIT ABC, at that time, Biotech Center, to Viterbo University, or Tosha University in Viterbo, where I was doing radioactive RFLPs, to Cornell University, to McGill University, to so many universities where I was really following up on new technologies to finalize my PhD, which was mapping of genes of quality in durum wheat. So I think this journey marked me forever. It gave me the flavor of working on international projects, on global projects, and it gave me also a chance to go from different labs. And in every lab, I learned something other than the science. I learned really how to deal with people. I learned how to 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 appreciate the differences between the people, and appreciate the differences of the culture, appreciate the difference in food, in music, in languages. I always say my learning Spanish was wonderful for me. Not only I wanted badly, and that's why actually I picked up Cordoba University, because I wanted to be in Andalusia and wanted to learn Spanish, but also it opened up the door for me to speak to so many countries in Latin America. And my visit, be it to Mexico, to Peru, to Costa Rica, to Cuba, to many of the countries, each time I go, the fact that I speak Spanish makes me feel part of the community, makes me really speak to farmers in the field, speak to people in the street. So the language is a powerful way of communicating, understanding, appreciating the other person. And that's what we need in this world where we have so much problems that are mostly man-made, and a lot of wars across the globe that are man-made because we don't understand each other. And by not understanding each other, we tend to be very, very defensive. So, in a grand scheme of things, I did my PhD. I got an offer to go to Japan to do my postdoc. And by the way, I got few offers, but I took Japan because again, my curiosity, I wanted to know how is the Far East. I wanted to know how is that part of the world, which is quite different from the Mediterranean or the Latino or North America or Africa. So I did my postdoc in Japan, and it was wonderful. I tried to learn Spanish. My boss at that time was Dr. Masa Iwanaga, that later on became the DG of CIMMYT. And I learned Japanese. Within 6 months, I was able to speak a bit of Japanese and to mingle in Japan. And again, it was a wonderful journey to see a different ecosystem, a different culture, a different way of doing agriculture, but also of doing research. And after I finished my postdoc, I came back, worked with ICARDA in Syria, which in Aleppo, which is a lovely city that I hope will come back to be what we used to know about it. I worked there for 2 years and then decided that I want to have family. I want to settle in. I want to maybe a normal life or a less hectic life. So I migrated to Canada. And when I migrated to Canada, it was like starting a new chapter in my life. So it was a new chapter where I thought I'm going to become an academician. So I went to McGill and I worked with McGill for 1 year. I took over a lab from Dr. Diane Mader, that was doing her sabbatical year in Australia. And they thought, really, that's where I'm going to be. It's McGill University. I love it. I'm going to be an academician. I love students. I love teaching. And then there was no position in McGill for me at that time because Diane uh, didn't gave away her position, so there was no replacement. And I remember I called Diane and I said, "What do you think? Should I stay and continue managing your lab and giving the courses that I have, or shall I move on?" And she said, "No, Ismahane, if you stay there, they're going to take you for granted. So go, and if the position is open, you apply." And by going to Ottawa and starting the work with federal government, it took me to a completely different sphere. I started as a visiting scientist, but then a new assistant deputy minister came from McGill University to change the Ministry of Agriculture, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. So, and when he came, he called me up and he said, "I need somebody really that understands the ministry. Could you want to come and work with me, but in science management, not in the labs?" And I took on that challenge, and that challenge really changed my life because by being in the senior advisor to the assistant deputy minister, it made me look at science differently. So I start seeing how budgets are allocated, how performance is measured, how do you put a strategy? How could you really work with the farmers, with the different provinces, with the private sector? So it was a very big learning curve for me. And it showed me that if we want to get science to be heard, if we want to get science to be used for our policy decision and budget decisions, we need more scientists in the management. We can't let lawyers or finance people running the show. And that's where I realize in the government of Canada, and they have a lot of numbers that show it, most of the senior managers in the government of Canada or in the government institution are either lawyers or finance people. Whereas scientists, they tend to love their science so much, to specialize more and more, that they don't want to manage. They don't like to manage because they feel by managing it, they're not doing it themselves. So they are not the inventor. They're not the person that brings the new. It's a person that manages. So somehow that really tickled with me. I understood that I saw an opportunity to move my career towards more management. So I moved to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, I run the program on plant health first, and then I became the director of partnership, of research and partnership, whereby I had about 16, 17 center across Canada that has scientists that covers animal health, plant health, and food safety. So I have a lot of vets and a lot of plant scientists and animal scientists and food safety scientists that really reported, not reported to me directly, but I was running the agenda. So we had the strategy in place. We do a call for proposal. We have the proposals that are submitted, and we go through the implementation of the project, the partnership that was mostly international, but mostly quadrilateral with Australia, the US, and UK, and so on and so forth, because it was very much attached to the agenda of plant health, animal health, and food safety in Canada. And I spent 8 years in Canada. I became a very good Canadian that understand the system and is part of it. And then one time I did what we call the 360. So I did psychometric analysis because I was going applying for a director general position. And when I was talking to the psychiatrist, she told me, Ismahane, you are doing your job beautifully and you are going up differently, but you don't like it. I'm like, oh, wow. She said, you hate bureaucracy that you are going through. And the only time I see your eyes really jumping out, it's when you talk about your time in international development with ICARDA and CIMIT. And then I said, oh my God, you're right. Absolutely. It makes you really rethink my career. And that's how I insisted to come back on international development. I realized there are so many like me in Canada that can do the job, but to go into international development, there are not that many like me. I need to go and do what I care about the most, which is really international public research and trying to help really the global south, particularly the small scale producers, wherever they are. And that's how it took me back to ICBA and from ICBA to FAO. So I think really, if I sum up my journey, it was a journey of looking for something. And by the end, it took me to go to Canada, be part of the Canadian system, learn science management to realize that my heart lies in international development, and it lies in international development using science, technology, and innovation. And hence, I went to ICBA. It was a beautiful 9 years of my life where really I was so happy to take a small center and make it and put it on the map, talking about how the environment in the UAE right now, it's desertic. The water is saline. But with the climate change, the environment that are arable now will become marginalized, and we will have a lot of salinity issues. And hence, we need to use the genetic resources right now to breed the crops for tomorrow. So it was a beautiful journey where we put a lot of emphasis on certain species like quinoa, like salicornia, like millet, like asparagus, and a few others. And 9 years later, and that's only recently 2020, I felt I've made the tour. I did what I could for ICBA. I don't think I was any more an add value to the center. And I picked up another challenge by going to the United Nations and joining the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations as a chief scientist. And by doing that, I think it was another, it's like starting a new chapter again, whereby getting to understand better the United Nations, understand better the geopolitics of agriculture and food, understanding and working very closely with member states and with the representative, permanent representative of different countries. And when I joined first, I discussed with the DG and we decided we need to do a science and innovation strategy because we need to hear from the country what do they need. And throughout that process, I got to really to understand better what Mozambique needs, what Peru needs, what Mexico needs, what Japan needs. So it's different countries and different regions that have different agriculture system, but also are looking at the transformation from different lenses. Is it the lens of climate change adaptation the highest? Is it the nutrition? Is it the productivity? So it was an interesting journey that really got us to have a science and innovation strategy, an implementation plan, and we started a number of initiatives to just put in place that strategy, that we kept saying that it's not one strategy for all. Every country and every region takes it from their own lenses. And it was a backbone of putting in place the strategic framework of FAO, which aims for getting the four betters: better production, better nutrition, better environment, and better life, leaving no one behind. And for me, that leaving no one behind and having a better life for everybody based on agriculture was a very, very important uh, objective and target that we should all work with. And as a geneticist and a scientist, I know that science can help us do it. Of course, it's not only science, it's science plus investment, plus policy, plus regulation, engagement of partners, many other things. But the science is the component that can trigger everything else. So it's so nice to talk to you today. I don't want to talk too much. I hope there will be questions that we can dive into other things. But in the great scheme of things, I feel like I'm a very proud woman scientist from the South that made it globally, but that still feel that I'm part of the South and I understand it well, and I want to do more for the global South, particularly for the farmers, and particularly in those farmers, for the women and the youth within that community, the farming community. And over to you, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elouafi, for such a natural and engaging talk. And hello, everyone. I am Andrea Gardezabal. I am a member of the Women in Crop Science group, and I lead digital agriculture and M&E at CIMMYT. And today I'm truly excited to have the opportunity to interview you, Dr. Elouafi, as your journey as a leading woman in science, your visionary perspective on agri-food systems, and your policy influence are incredibly inspiring. So I'd like to start by asking you, as someone who has made significant progress in a traditionally male-dominated field, can you share some of the challenges you face it and how your experience as a woman in this field has shaped somehow your leadership style?
Thank you, Andrea. Please call me Ismahane.
I will.
And I think the challenges are the challenges that we all came across. So it's challenges of being a good scientist first, finding the right subject, finding the right resources, having the right partners to do really well what you care about. There are also challenges as I moved from place to place where I start from scratch. When you start, particularly from country to country, I mean, I love it. I don't have a fear. I know many people are very worried to move. For me, every move was like starting over, and I enjoyed really mingling with people, getting to know them, learning the language if needed, get new friends. But I know that now that at my age, I find it a bit more difficult. When I was young, it was a pleasure. And I find myself, one of the things that maybe that determined me that I didn't mention in the beginning is that I am somebody that visited about 70 countries, that lived long enough for in at least 10 countries. So that makes me a global citizen, and makes me, that's when I say I understand Europeans. Yes, I do understand Europeans. I understand the Japanese, Korean, and Chinese, the Far East. Yes, I do. I lived with them. I know them very well, and so on and so forth. So the challenges is it's definitely, there is nothing specific, except maybe that in some circumstances, particularly as a manager, I feel myself when I go to a new place, I have to prove myself again. Whereas I know if I was a man, I don't need it. I don't need to do that much efforts. The fact that I am a woman, and particularly young women, they just expect you that you got there because you got some favoritism or somebody pushed you. And then you need to work hard more and more and more to prove that you deserve it, that you got to become the DG of ICBA or the DG of this or the manager of this or this, because you deserve it, because you worked hard and you delivered. So that's, I find it always. When I start being on board of director, it was even worse, whereby some people will talk to you like if you are a little young girl. So, but you know what? Sometimes I enjoy that once they discover, they change completely their attitude. But definitely you need to do more efforts at the beginning.
Well, thank you very much. I'm also curious about how you keep your motivation. How do you maintain your energy towards that, and how you keep your confidence growing as a leader in these, again, male-dominated environment?
You have to like what you do. If you don't like what you do, you get out of it. That's what I always say. I mean, there's so many opportunities and so much to do that you have to be in a place that you like it. As soon as you don't feel you don't belong to the place, you don't like your job, you don't like your partners, move on. And by moving, you grow. I myself, when I talk to the young people, if you stay within the same organization, the opportunities for you to go up are very limited. As soon as you move from organization to organization, country to country, the opportunities are much higher. So for me, the motivation is believing in what I do and really enjoying what I do. If I don't enjoy it, I try really to shorten it and move on to next one. And as I said in the video, for me, I came back to the international. It took me the psychometric test to understand I need to go back to international development. And since then, I don't see myself in anything but international development because I feel really there is still a huge need for more science, for more push for international development in the global south to really bridge the yield gap and to make sure those people in the south are producing the food they need and are producing at the nutrition level that they need in a way that really protect and respect their ecosystem, of course.
Yes, I totally agree. So in your view, what changes do you think are needed within research organizations to make them more inclusive in general, but also attractive to women pursuing careers in science? What do you think that needs to be changed?
I think the most important is the policies. So let me put it two. There is one of them, it's the policies of the organization to help women really both remain within the working force, but also to continue their biological need and to be really a mom and have a family and have really a supporting system in the working place. But also we need right now positive discrimination. So career, I mean, in the life as a whole, not only in science, not only in agriculture, in so many other sectors, it was a man sector. It was a man world. It was policies made by men. And has been going on for many centuries. So to come to a more balanced gender in all sectors again, but mostly in agriculture and in science in agriculture, we need positive discrimination. It doesn't mean we have to pick women that are not qualified. No, we pick both of them. If you got two, a man and a woman that are qualified, you pick up the woman. I'm not saying that we kind of limit our ambition and reduce the qualification requirement. No, but we try really when we have the same qualification to give a chance to a woman in that working space. So I think we do need it, and we need it for about at least 50, 60, 70 years till we come to a more balanced. Because right now, the numbers are not encouraging at all, particularly when you go into senior management, you don't find there is about the general number is about 2%. So it's not, we are very far from 50%. So if we want to march towards that 50%, we need to do positive discrimination and we need to put in place policies that encourage women to continue in their careers.
Awesome. So I have one that I cannot leave out because I come from a background on digital innovation. I'm very interested in your perspective on how digital technology can either enhance or hinder inclusiveness in agri-food systems, and particularly in the regions of the global south. So can you share any insights regarding the responsible use of digital tools?
So first, let me tell you, Andrea, the digital tools, it's a golden opportunity for us to leapfrog development. It's the first time that we have tools to bring knowledge to the farmers and bring knowledge to the stakeholders in the easiest way possible. So we are bypassing so many hinders, from the language roadblock, from or challenge, to the knowledge challenge, to the communication challenge. So many challenges, we could bypass them with the digital. But the digital, in most times, requires literacy. So you need literacy to be able to really take the most advantage of the gadget and the digital tools in general. And that's where there is a risk. There is a risk, particularly in the global south, where we have still a large number of illiterate people. Most of the illiterate are rural, and most of those in the rural are women. So we need really to make sure that we catch up with literacy, and that we also develop digital tools that requires less literacy or less knowledge of the digital. So that's where I see it myself. I see really the big hope to really catch up with international development, but also the need to invest more in literacy and in making sure that the rural communities really take advantage of the digital tools.
Thank you. So before I open the floor to other colleagues to ask questions, your leadership at FAO is making a significant impact on global agriculture and food security as well. Could you share some key insights that you've gained throughout your career regarding the transformation of agri-food systems, specifically towards resilience and sustainability? How do we ensure the transformation process is actually going towards where we want?
So I think we have the evolution of the ag sector has moved in a way where we made few mistakes. The mistakes were done for a purpose. So we did develop only few species, be it in plant, be it in animal, be it in bacteria. So, and that was done mostly because of economical limitation, and because of the economy we know today. It's all about the scale. It's about really getting to a bigger market, produce it in 1 million of hectares. So there is a lot of mistakes throughout history, and that made really the ag sector not only very fragile to climate change, but also part of the problem of climate change. So agricultural sector, it's both a contributor to climate change, but also one of the sectors that will be the most affected by climate change. So how could we really, and that's where transformation is a must. It's not maybe we should do it. No, it's a must. We need change the agri-food system towards more resilience and more sustainability, more inclusiveness, and more efficiency. So many of the processes we have now make sense commercially, but does not make sense in terms of efficiency. So like when we started traceability, we do traceability, it got developed very well for diseases mostly, but it wasn't developed to look at the efficiency. Does it make sense that we continue moving the commodities across the world this way? No, it doesn't. But those data are in the hand of multinationals. They don't share data, and they don't want to use traceability to reduce their greenhouse gas. So WTO says that every commodity cross the border at least twice. So you multiply potato, it goes to another country, so it passes the borders. It might come back as a starch. Then you do the starch and you do something else, it goes to another place. So this is, if we use traceability to look at the footprint of commodities, we will stop the trade the way we are doing it right now. We will much more responsibilize multinational for their emissions and push everybody to really use more local production, more regional production, more intra-trade within a country, within a region. So there are many ways to do it. So I think the transformation beyond the production per se, it has to go to the trade, to the private sector, to really, and that's where we need a really good monitoring of greenhouse gas in general. The other component in the ag sector that we don't talk about enough is that the ag sector is the only sector that can increase its sequestration capacity. The others cannot do it. So if we think about energy, energy could stop the emission that they could have done if they use a normal energy source. Whereas the ag sector, it's different. We are not stopping something that we're going to emit. We could sequester more. We could take actually the gas from the air and sequester it in the soil, in the plant, and so. But the fact that we are not quantifying it, we are not getting any value for it to the farmers and the producers. So I always say, Andrea, in the best word would be that we're able to quantify all kind of sequestration that we are doing in the ag sector, and the farmer gets paid for what they produce because it's nutrition, because it's food or feed or fiber, but also for their ecosystem services, that is their sequestration capacity. And if we do that, then everybody has an incentive to really go towards more sustainability and resilience.
Absolutely. So thank you very much for your generous questions. I'll give the word to my colleague Isabel so you can receive some other questions from the others. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this interesting conversation and grateful discussion and contributions. Now we would like to open the floor for questions from the audience. We invite you to raise your hand, to turn on your camera and unmute yourself, or you can submit it in Slido. So the first question for Dr. Elouafi is, just a moment, please. Just 1 second. Okay. What valuable lessons did you obtain from our supportive environments that could be applied to those where challenges are more pronounced for women scientists?
Isabel, can you repeat the question quickly?
Oh, yes. Okay. So, what valuable lessons have you obtained from more supportive environments that could be applied to those where challenges are more pronounced for women scientists?
Okay. So I always give the example of how did I give birth to 2 daughters. So it's about the policies, public policy. So in Canada, I had my first daughter. I was an employee of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and I had a full year off to take care of my daughter and came back to work. And as a matter of fact, the year off, it's calculated as a working year. So it goes into your system as how would I call it? For your pension and everything else, or seniority. I had my baby, my second baby, when I was DG of ICPA in the UAE, and the policy of the center was 2 months off. So the difference is huge between having a year to nurture your baby versus only 2 months to nurture your baby. So I think really public policy and a supportive system, it's very important, and we don't have it in many parts of the world. So I salute Canada for their gender sensitive policy, and I really hope the other countries will do the same.
Thank you. Now we have one hand raised. Sarah, would you like to open your camera and your micro? Thank you. Okay. Something may happen to Sarah. Okay, so here we have one comment. Okay, Sarah, yes, you're right.
Yeah,
Please.
sorry, you weren't letting me open my mic. I can't open my camera, so apologies for that, but yeah, believe me, you're not missing anything. Thank you very much for giving a narrative which resounds with many of us on the call. And I'd like to touch on a comment that you were making around positive discrimination. Now, when we are receiving applications for jobs, many times there are really very few, sometimes no women applying for the roles. And so thinking in the longer term and the bigger picture, trying to encourage more women to feel confident to apply for these roles, what do you think the CG system could do to better facilitate some of that dialogue and encouragement around women looking for careers in this sector at university, looking at opportunities post undergraduate degree, and really looking to apply for these kind of roles within the international agricultural space?
Thank you, Sarah, for the question. I think there is so much the CGIAR can do. Um, Other than the policies and the positive discrimination, if those women are coming forward, we need really to have programs for young scientists. We need to develop postdoctoral hubs, for example. I mean, all the centers are really centers of excellence. And those centers of excellence, it's very easy to attract young scientists and particularly women with a focus on women to really do their postdoctoral fellows with them. We have to do programs, mentoring programs. We have to do PhDs, students as well with a gender lens. All of it we could put in place a requirement, but also KPIs that we need to have a PhD program with at least 50% women, 70% women. So we could play with the number based on what we have in the program, but I think we have to do it at different layers. And in my view, we have really to start from the lowest, whereby we create as much as possible fellowships to get the PhDs and to bring them from the nurses. The best would be that we have also certain programs with the countries whereby we nurture the scientists, we prepare the scientists, be it a PhD or postdoctoral or junior scientists, but there is also a flow going back to the nurses. The nurses requires their capacity to stay from within. So we have to find a formula that works well, but I think we have to tackle it at different levels. And only by tackling it at different levels, we will have a large enough pool that will make it to the higher positions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. So we are going to continue addressing the slide of questions that we have received. And the next one is, what advice do you have for professional women who are leaders in finance, operations, ICT, and other administrative fields at CG centers and beyond?
So I think when we talk about women, maybe we talk mostly about science women or women in science, but I think the same thing applies to the other sectors, be it ICT or administration or legal or communication. So I think particularly within the CGIAR system, and I'm very happy that I am an incoming executive management director from 1st of December, is that really we need as well to nurture that diversity and that positive environment for women to work in all the areas, not only in the labs, not only in the field, but across the different disciplines and different administration within the organization. So I would say if you are, my advice would be, if you are, be ambitious first. So nothing should stop you wherever you are, in a lab again, or behind a desk. Nothing should stop you. Be ambitious. If there is something wrong in the system, speak up and disclose it and request that things change. So we can change things only if we bring them to light and we discuss them. And the other thing is that if the policies are not conducive, I would love to have that conversation, because we do need to change the policies to really provide women with opportunities in the CGIAR and in the partners in the other institution that we partner with.
Thank you so much. So we have Claudia Velasco. Would you like to open your mic and your camera? Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for this space that you're giving to us. And somehow you just answered my question, but I will ask anyway if you want to add something. It's like, what specific actions or initiatives would you like to implement in your new role to sustainable impact, advancing women's empowerment and driving positive societal change? And I think my camera is not working. I'm sorry for that.
No te preocupes. Don't worry about it, Claudia.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think really it's about doing an assessment first, understanding what are the issues, and they know that really there are already different committees in place to look at different aspects. But really, when we talk about supporting women, and providing, as we said, positive discrimination, or at least an opportunity to a woman to really rise and grow and pursue their careers, it has to be intentional. It's not something that's gonna come like that, unless we insist in it, unless we weave it in everything we do. It won't happen. So given the 2% I mentioned earlier, which is not the case of the CGIAR, I have to say, which is not the case of FAO and the United Nations as well, but still it's a lower rate. We need to work on it. And working on it, in my view, it's not on one stop, it's on different levels. So there is certain administration where we have more women than others. There are certain areas or sectors that you have more men than others. But the reality of the things, first, a woman should always have the choice. So me as a person, I have the choice to do A or B. That's the given. So there is nothing that will be imposed on anybody. Then the second one is that women should have exactly the same opportunities as a man. So if a man has been given certain hours of training, the women should have exactly the same. So that parity, that's where the parity is. The parity is in opportunities. But then who gonna go to senior management, or who gonna stay in the science or in another work? This is a personal choice, and the personal choice remains the personal liberty to do it based on their context and their situation. But what we have to tackle, it's the equal opportunities.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you so much, Dr. Elouafi, for your great talk. We enjoy your presentation. Thank you for being here today. We really appreciate you took the time to share with us your professional growth, a great leader model to follow. So thank you and best regards.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be with you. Gracias. Adios. Ciao.
I am Esther Ngumbi, and I'm an assistant professor at Entomology and African American Studies. I got up early every day to work on our family farm before going to school. A key focus of my work is global food security. In addition to developing new approaches and technologies that farmers can use here in Illinois, I want to find solutions for resource-poor farmers that can't afford expensive technologies. My life's ultimate goal is to transfer all the knowledge gained from my research to developing countries. I look forward to the day that I can train African farmers products from soil that are designed for their farms. I will push this sustainable movement that begins in the soil. I will keep inspiring people to take action against hunger and food insecurity, and to ensure a future of nutritious food for our world's growing population.
Please join our next seminar in the Catalyst of Change series on October 3rd.